she would need to mark the curves on here somehow, lightly, all right? Very lightly, so that only you can see it, because they'll probably stay there. The marks will probably stay there. There are special marking pens that you can get, that there are two special kinds. One that fades in 24 hours, all right, which is cool. You make the line and then you come back the next day and it's gone, disappearing ink. And the other kind, you make the mark and then when you're all done, you take a damp cloth and wet it and it disappears, all right? Those are great for this. If you have straight lines, like this design that she's going to be using, you can mark them with tape, right, after you put it all together. And that's what we're going to do here. But if you're doing straight lines, it's best to mark it at this point, all right, before you pin it up and sew the layers together. I'm going to use Leah's as an example. I'm going to do part of it now. I'm not going to do the whole thing, so you're going to have to listen really carefully. I have this other sample piece that shows various stages of completion. So I'm going to also be referring to this. And you guys can actually work on this to try the quilt stitching and also to try the hem stitching. Some of you on your batiks, your hemming was not real strong. You know who I mean. I'm not looking at anybody in particular, but you know, a few of you, I said, you know, see me. On this, you're going to be hemming on the top, so it's going to show. And I don't want it to show any more than this, all right? And this is actually using black thread so that you can see the stitches. Ideally, you're going to use a thread that matches some of your fabric so that it shows even less, all right? But there are examples of everything we're going to do to the end of the project. So, starting with number 9, lightly mark the quilt lines on your completed patchwork square. All right? We're not going to do that. We're going to wait and use masking tape. Number 10, layer the patchwork square, which is the top, with the batting, which I've given you, with your backing, which is 18 inches square. All right? So the first thing you're going to have to do is cut out a perfect 18-inch by 18-inch square. And then you're going to center your batting on that, okay, so that it is pretty even. The batting is extra large, all right? I cut it 15 inches, and you're going to trim it before you actually fold the edges over. But I made it big on purpose, and that's because as you do the quilt stitches, which go through all 3 layers, as you do that, this all sort of shrinks in a little bit. So to allow for that, you know, pulling in, we make this extra large and then trim off what's left over. All right? This should be ironed and ready to go. If it's not square, if it's, you know, if you've got some that are, this is a little bit longer than this. It's not enough to worry about at this point. If you wanted to, you could square that up. But if you have a major difference there, you want to mark it and cut it and square it up. All right, get nice sharp edges. But then you're going to want to center this as much as possible so that the distance from here to the green edge is pretty much the same all the way around. All right, and smooth it out. Then when you get to that point, and I would really be taking notes at this point because you are not going to be able to remember all these steps. And I'm not going to go through this again. Smooth it out. Starting in the middle, you're going to pin through all 3 layers, like this. Okay. And then smooth it out. The reason you start in the middle is so that you can run any ripples, any bubbles in the fabric out off the edge. Okay? And then go to the opposite side, run them off the other edge. And then go this way, and run them off this way. And I'm going through all 3 layers, but it's a good idea to check the back once in a while to make sure you're not bubbling it up. whole thing, but I am going to pin it completely up. All right, so pretty much it's all together and it won't move, right? Now, next step is to take contrasting thread. I don't know if I cut that off yet. I don't think so. Thread up a needle and baste it. And you guys know what basting is, right? It's what? I'm just putting oil on the turkey. Yeah, I bet you're a good cook, Sean. Sean knows basting a turkey. All right. It's not basting a turkey. It is big temporary stitches. All right. Remember that from the batik? Okay. Starting in the middle, I put a knot on one end. The other end is free. All right. And I'm just going to go through all 3 layers. Okay. The reason we do this, who wants to guess why we do this?
So it could hold the thing in place.
So it holds all the layers so they don't move, and you can get rid of the pins. Okay? Because the pins are going to be in your way. The thread will get tangled around it, you're going to poke yourself, and you don't want those pins there. I'm going to do one of these. And then I'm going to go up on the board. And I would take it all the way out to the edge, like this. And cut it off. And I cut a long tail, like that. And then I would come back here, start in the middle again, out to the opposite corner. Start in the middle again, out to that corner, out to that corner. And then I would do a spider web. Because you want to sort of keep always running it out to the edge from the middle in case you've got a bubble. All right, you don't want to trap that bubble. I put a diagram up here. All right, and I'm going to draw in there what I want you to do. All right, so out to the side, out to the side, out to the side, like that, and then spider web it. Like this. Make big stitches. Then come in with all your pins. Alright? Move all your pins and you're ready to go. Then what you're going to want to do, I'm going to actually just bring this over top of her drawing. You're going to have to figure out where your lines are going to go based on your design that's been approved. Alright? Don't even do this until I've signed off on it. Again, you want to think in terms of starting in the middle. So I've got a couple rolls of this really thin tape, which is made for this purpose, actually. If it's not too old. And let's say it looks like right. All right, let's do that one. I was going to do that diagonal one that goes sort of through here somehow, but I don't know if it's lining up exactly. I want to do a middle one, but I don't want to do that one. Well, let me just I'll do this one over here, which goes through the middle. Here.
Yep, that was what's last time.
All right, that'll be the second one. I'm going to just do this, all right? And you only need to do one of these at a time. And I'm not actually going to do this. Oh, there you go. I'm going to let you do this. But this is how you would tape it up, okay? And then you would sew along the line, and then you pull this up. And you can probably use this 2 or 3 times before you have to replace the tape. Okay, you with me on that? So this way you don't have to mark the lines. I'm going to do it on this one, right, so that you can do that. So you do one, ideally do whatever's closest in the middle and then work out to the sides. Just put this down, any old wear, that right there. And for your quilting, this is quilting thread, these big spools. And I don't mind if you share this, but you can't take them home. So if you want some, pull it off. You don't need a whole lot, all right? And I'm going to take a little bit with you. For the quilting, the smaller the needle, the easier it is, believe it or not, okay? That just sort of, I never believed that for years and years, and then I finally tried it. It was like really easy compared to big needles. And that's because it just glides through a lot faster. A little knot in the long end with the short end hang free. Right? Same as before. Now, you don't want a whole bunch of knots showing on the back, right? So the way you do this is, I'm going to just sew right along the edge of that tape. Don't sew through the tape, sew along the edge of the tape, right? Everybody knows that, right? The way you start this is a little tricky, and I sometimes have to start 3 or 4 times. I pulled it through all the way to there, and now what I'm going to do is try to pop it through that back layer of fabric and embed the knot in the batting. All right? What often happens is it comes all the way through, and you have to try it again. But I'm going to try it, and you can actually sort of, I always close my eyes. Did you hear that? Yeah. All right, if you were close, you might have heard it, and that worked. It went in. The knot is inside that fabric. So I can just trim this little tail off, all right? And nothing will show on the back. I'll do that when it's all done. So that's, you know, I was lucky. Usually it's not good, so good. And then your quilt stitching is the same stitching that you do, that you're doing to put your pieces together. Only this one shows, right? So straight up and straight down tends to work best, right? And some people like using a quilting hoop. I should have a yeah, a thimble. Okay. Straight up and down, pull it through. All right, straight up and down, pull it through. When you do the back stitch, try to do the back stitch so that it doesn't show. In other words, do it on top of another stitch. Okay, no knots, no knots showing it off. And
so that's for your X and your spider web that you're doing right now?
This is for your quilting design. Okay, the one that you draw on the tracing paper.
How do you finish it off?
To finish it off, so just saying, let me come in. If you try to do this one stitch at a time, it's going to take you forever. To finish it off, I would go to the back. I would just poke it through, bring it out the back, and then do something like this. Well, you don't want to work with a double strand, so let me see which one it is. Come on, come on. So to finish it off, go backwards in such a way, I'm going to just take a little stitch here, and then go through the layers, all right, and come up here and just yeah, and then go right over top of that stitch. And you don't have to go through all 3 layers on this, all right? 2 or 3 stitches like that to back it up. And since I did such a short area, then you can just trim that off. These are some really dull scissors. And trim the first one off, and you don't see any knots at all. Okay? So, this is for you guys to practice on. All right? You can't mess it up, it's just scrapped anyway. I'm gonna go ahead and put a knot in this, and you can use this same thread if you want. In terms of which color do you use? On this, do you have any quilting thread, or you can use regular sewing thread if you want. We have a dark green, and I think that would be a good choice for you if you want to use the school's thread. What I will ask you guys to do, this stuff gets really misbehaved, and what I will ask you to do after you've used it, see, is just sort of wind it up like this, and then put a little piece of tape over the end, like see, it just goes the end of its end, just like that. All right, when you're done, please. Otherwise, get your own thread. Okay. All right. So, help yourself. As soon as, well, it's going to have to be Wednesday. I'll show you how to do the hemming.